March 15th, 1966. Con Tum Province, Central Highlands, South Vietnam. The rifle feels wrong in Nguyen Van Hai's hands. He crouches in the undergrowth 40 meters from Highway 14, the captured American M16 resting across his thighs, and he can't shake the feeling that this weapon wants to kill him more than it wants to kill the enemy. The black plastic stock is slick with humidity. The carrying handle protrudes from the top like a broken promise. Everything about it seems fragile, toy-like, compared to the AK-47 he surrendered to his squad leader 3 days ago. Hai is 22 years old, a Viet Cong fighter with the 95th Regiment, and until last week he believed himself lucky. His unit had ambushed an ARVN convoy near Plei Mai, and among the spoils were 6 M16 rifles scattered across the road like gifts from heaven. His commander, Captain Truong, had distributed them to the best shots in the company. Hai had been honored, proud even. Now he just wants his AK back. The weapon beside him, propped against a mahogany root, belonged to Le Van Duc, who'd carried an M16 for exactly 9 days before it killed him. Not directly, not in the way you'd think. During a firefight with American infantry near Dak To, Duc had fired 3 rounds before the rifle jammed. He died trying to clear it, shot twice through the chest while his hands worked frantically at the charging handle. Hai had dragged his body back through 200 meters of elephant grass, and when they stripped Duke's gear, Hai had inherited both the dead man's rifle and his terrible luck. "You're thinking too much," whispers Pham, crouched 3 meters to Hai's left. Pham still carries his AK-47, battered, scarred, but reliable as sunrise. "It's just a rifle." "It's a curse," Hai mutters. Through the canopy above, morning light filters in cathedral rays. The jungle breathes with insect sound and bird call. Somewhere distant, a howler monkey screams. Highway 14 cuts through this wilderness like a scar, red dirt packed hard by thousands of military tires. Intelligence says an American supply convoy will pass within the hour. Trucks carrying ammunition, medical supplies, maybe weapons. Captain Truong has positioned 30 fighters along a kilometer-long killing zone. Hai's team holds the northern anchor. He checks the M16 again, magazine seated, chamber loaded, selector switch on semi-automatic. The rifle weighs 7 pounds, 3 pounds lighter than his AK. American soldiers call it the Black Rifle. Vietnamese fighters have other names for it, none complimentary. Sung Chet, some call it. The death gun. And they don't mean death for the enemy. The problem isn't the weapon's design, though. Hai doesn't know this. The problem is upstream in factories across the Pacific where accountants make decisions that will ripple outward to claim lives in jungles they'll never see. The M16 was engineered for a specific gunpowder, a clean-burning propellant that keeps the rifle's gas system running smoothly. But clean-burning powder costs money, and the U.S. military, in its infinite wisdom, has substituted a cheaper alternative. This new powder burns dirty, leaves residue, gums up the rifle's direct impingement system. Add tropical humidity. Add laterite dust. Add the fact that soldiers were told the M16 was self-cleaning and didn't need maintenance, and you have a weapon that fails at the worst possible moment. Hai knows none of this technical detail. He only knows that every Viet Cong fighter who carries a captured M16 carries it with suspicion. Stories circulate through the jungle camps. Stories of rifles jamming after the first magazine, of stuck cartridges that require cleaning rods to extract, of soldiers killed while their beautiful American weapons betray them. The AK-47 is crude by comparison, loosely fitted, with clearances wide enough to function even packed with mud. It's a peasant's weapon, but peasants win wars. A hand signal from the tree line. Captain Truong, barely visible in the shadows, makes a fist, then points south. The convoy approaches. Hai's heart accelerates, his palms sweat against the M16's pistol grip. Through gaps in the foliage he can see the road, empty still, but he can hear the rumble of diesel engines growing louder. The sound swells until it seems to compress the air itself, heavy trucks grinding up the grade, their suspensions creaking under cargo weight. The first vehicle appears, an M35 deuce and a half, its canvas top faded by sun, then another. Then 3 more, rolling north in close formation. American soldiers visible in the truck beds, weapons ready, scanning the jungle. 50 meters behind the convoy, a gun jeep with a mounted M60 machine gun brings up the rear. Captain Truong's whistle cuts through the morning, high and sharp. The jungle erupts. Hai squeezes the trigger. The M16 barks once, a sharp crack distinctly different from the deeper boom of AK fire, and the soldier in the second truck's cab jerks sideways. High fires again. The rifle bucks against his shoulder, surprisingly light, surprisingly fast, and he watches the third round punch through the truck's canvas top. He shifts aim toward a soldier jumping from the tailgate and squeezes again. Nothing. The trigger moves, but the rifle doesn't fire. His heart seizes. Around him, the ambush crescendos, AK-47s hammering in full automatic, RPG trails lacing through the air, grenades detonating along the road. The Americans are firing back now, M14s and M60s pouring rounds into the tree line, and High is frozen with a dead weapon in his hands. He racks the charging handle. A spent casing ejects, spinning golden through shafts of sunlight, but it looks wrong. The neck is still gripping a bullet. The round hasn't fired. He racks again, harder, and the malformed cartridge comes free. Chambers another round, aims at a soldier taking cover behind the lead truck's engine block. Fires. Click. "Jit me!" The curse tears from his throat. He drops the magazine, slaps in his spare, charges the weapon again. The Americans have established a defensive perimeter now, using their trucks as cover, laying down suppressive fire that tears through leaves and wood. Bark explodes from the tree next to High's head. He presses himself into the earth, fumbling with the rifle's chamber, trying to understand what's happening. Pham is firing controlled bursts, his AK functioning exactly as designed. The brass casings tumble into the leaf litter beside him, smoking faintly. He empties his magazine, reloads in 4 seconds, continues firing. High watches with something close to despair. The M60 on the gun jeep has found their position, tracers cut through the jungle in long, seeking streams, every 5th round burning red-orange. Trees splinter. A fighter named Bin, positioned 10 meters downslope, takes a round through the thigh and screams. The sound cuts through even the chaos of the firefight. High raises the M16 again, flips the selector to full automatic, thinking maybe the rifle will work if he just commits to the moment. He aims at the M60 gunner and holds down the trigger. 3 rounds fire, crack, 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 then nothing. The bolt locks forward on another malfunction. The M60 keeps firing, now traversing directly toward High's position, and he can see the gunner's face, young and pale and terrified, but professional enough to keep feeding belt into weapon. Rounds snap past High's head like angry hornets. He rolls left, abandons the M16, scrambles toward Bin, who's clutching his leg and trying not to scream. Blood pulses between Bin's fingers, dark and arterial. High drags him backward, away from the kill zone, as Captain Truong's whistle sounds 3 times, the signal to withdraw. The ambush has lasted maybe 90 seconds. They carry Bin 2 kilometers through jungle that seems designed to kill wounded men. Thorns catch on clothing and skin. Vines trip feet. The canopy closes overhead, turning noon into twilight. Behind them, the Americans aren't pursuing. They're securing their convoy, calling in air support, establishing a perimeter. Standard procedure. The Viet Cong have learned to vanish before the helicopters arrive. At the rally point, a clearing beside a bomb crater half filled with stagnant water, Captain Truong takes stock. 2 men killed. Duke from yesterday's action, and Kai, who took a burst from the M60 through the chest. 4 wounded, including Bin. They destroyed 1 truck, damaged 2 others, killed perhaps 5 Americans. A successful ambush by any measure, but Truong's face shows only calculation. "The M16s?" he asks. 3 fighters step forward, including Hai. They lay the rifles on the ground like evidence at a trial. "Jammed," says Hai. "Mine fired 8 rounds. Reports another fighter, Tan, then stopped. I couldn't clear it." The third man, older, named Quang, just shakes his head. 4 rounds. Then nothing. Captain Truong crouches beside the weapons. He's 40 years old, a veteran who fought the French before he fought the Americans, and his hands move with practiced efficiency. He field strips the first M16, laying out parts on a poncho. The bolt carrier comes out covered in black residue, carbon buildup so thick it looks like tar. The chambers similarly fouled. "The Americans don't clean them," Truong says quietly, "or they can't. These weapons need maintenance, the AK doesn't." "Then why do they carry them?" Pham asks. He's sitting with his back against a tree, his reliable AK across his lap, and there's genuine confusion in his voice. "Because when they work," Truong says, examining the M16's bore, "they're better than anything we have." This statement hangs in the humid air. Hai wants to argue, wants to defend the AK-47 that has never betrayed him, but he can't deny what he's seen in firefights. The M16 fires a tiny bullet, only 5.56 millimeters compared to the AK's 7.62, but that small bullet moves impossibly fast. Over 3,000 feet per second. When it hits a human body, it tumbles, creating wounds that are catastrophic. And the rifle itself, when it functions, can place rounds with accuracy that makes the AK seem like a blunt instrument. "We need cleaning kits," says Thon, "and oil, and time to maintain them." "We have none of those things," Truong replies. He begins reassembling the rifle. "But the Americans do, and still their weapons fail them." A radio crackles. The operator, a teenage boy named Min, listens, then reports, "Helicopter gunships inbound, heading this way from Pleiku." "Move!" Truong orders. They break camp in 30 seconds, carrying wounded and weapons, melting into jungle that accepts them like water accepts rain. Behind them, Hai can hear the distant whump, whump, whump of Huey rotors. He's carrying his old AK-47 again. Pham traded with him without discussion, understanding that Hai needed his faith in weapons restored. And the familiar weight feels like redemption. The M16s go into a weapons cache, wrapped in plastic, buried in a hole 6 feet deep. Maybe someone will retrieve them later. Maybe engineers can make them work. But for now, they're more valuable as intelligence, proof that American weapons, for all their technological sophistication, can be defeated by something as simple as dirty gunpowder and inadequate maintenance. Hai doesn't know it yet, but this story, his story, is playing out across South Vietnam. In fire-based perimeters and jungle clearings, in rice paddies and mountain valleys, American soldiers are dying with jammed M16s in their hands. The rifle that was supposed to revolutionize infantry combat has become a symbol of bureaucratic failure, of cost-cutting that costs lives, of a military-industrial complex more concerned with profit margins than fighting effectiveness. The complaints are reaching Washington now. Congressmen are asking questions, investigations are beginning, and in a factory somewhere in America, engineers are already designing fixes. A new bolt carrier, a chrome-lined chamber, a cleaning kit that will be issued with every rifle. But that's 1967. That's tomorrow's war. Today, in March 1966, the M16 is still a weapon that kills the wrong people. November 3rd, 1966, Chu Lai, South Vietnam. Marine Corps Captain Robert Jensen sits in a tent that smells of mildew and gun oil, reading letters that make his hands shake. Not from fear. He's been in country 8 months, and fear has become as routine as humidity. But from rage so pure it feels like electricity in his blood. The letter in his hand is from a mother in Iowa. Her son, Private First Class Michael Torres, died 3 weeks ago during a firefight near Da Nang. The after-action report said he was killed by enemy fire. What the report didn't say, what it couldn't say without triggering investigations and courts-martial, was that Torres died trying to clear a jammed rifle while NVA soldiers closed within grenade range. "They told me Michael was a hero," the letter reads. "They said he fought bravely, but his friend Jimmy wrote me a different letter. He said Michael's rifle stopped working. He said Michael died because his weapon failed him. Captain Jensen, please tell me Jimmy is wrong. Please tell me my son didn't die because someone gave him a broken gun." Jensen sets the letter down, picks up another. This one's from a sergeant in his own company, currently recovering at a hospital in Okinawa after taking shrapnel through his shoulder. "Sir, I'm writing this because I can't say it to your face without getting sent to the brig. The M16 is killing us. Not sometimes, not occasionally, constantly. I've seen men die trying to clear jams. I've seen men beaten to death with their own rifles because the rifles wouldn't shoot. Last week, Lance Corporal Diaz cleared 18 malfunctions in a single firefight. 18 times his weapon stopped working while people were trying to kill him. He's 20 years old, and his hair is turning gray. We need the M14s back. We need weapons that work. Or we need to go home because we can't fight a war with rifles that don't fire." There are 43 letters in the pile on Jensen's desk, some from parents, some from soldiers, some from other officers who've reached the same breaking point Jensen reached 2 months ago when he watched a machine gunner named Rodriguez die with a cleaning rod jammed down his M16's barrel, trying desperately to extract a stuck cartridge, while enemy fire tore through his position. Jensen is not a particularly courageous man, politically speaking. He follows orders. He respects the chain of command. He believes in the mission, or at least he tells himself he does. But he also believes that if the United States Marine Corps is going to send men to die in a jungle on the other side of the planet, those men deserve weapons that function. He picks up his pen, begins writing a report he knows will end his career. January 12, 1967, Cu Chi District, South Vietnam. Nguyen Van Hai hasn't thought about the M16 in months. He's been too busy surviving. Ambushes and airstrikes, malaria and mortar fire, the daily grinding violence that has become his entire existence. The war has aged him. He's 23 now, but looks 35. His face weathered by sun and stress, his body lean to the point of emaciation. He's assigned to a new unit now, the 165th Regiment, operating in the tunnels near Cu Chi. The Americans have a massive base there, and the Viet Cong have responded by burrowing into the earth like human termites. Miles of tunnels, some barely wide enough for a man to crawl through, all of them hot and dark and suffocating. Hai spends days underground, emerging only at night to fight and forage. Tonight, he's part of a supply detail, moving weapons and ammunition from one cache to another. The work is dangerous. American patrols are everywhere, and their new strategy of lighting the jungle with flares and firing artillery at random has made nighttime travel a gamble with death. They're moving through a secondary tunnel, clay walls pressing close, when the man ahead of Hai stops suddenly. A whispered conference. Then orders pass backward through the darkness, enemy movement above, hold position. Hai presses himself against the tunnel wall, listening. Above him, maybe 2 meters above, he can hear voices. American voices, young and nervous, talking too loudly because soldiers always talk too loudly when they're afraid. The voices fade. The tunnel team waits 5 minutes, then continues. At the weapons cache, Hai helps inventory supplies by the light of a single candle, rice, ammunition, medical supplies, and there, wrapped in canvas and plastic, a dozen rifles, M16s. American weapons, says the cache commander, a scarred veteran named Dung, captured last month near Tay Ninh. We're told they've been improved. Hai reaches for one almost involuntarily. The rifle feels familiar, same light weight, same odd balance, but something is different. The receiver is marked with new codes. The handguard is triangular instead of round. He works the charging handle and it moves smoothly, none of the grittiness he remembers. The Americans fixed them, Dung continues. New bolt, chrome-lined barrel, and this, he holds up a small plastic case. Cleaning kit. Finally, they realized their rifles need maintenance. Will they work? Asks another fighter, a teenager who'd never seen an M16 until tonight. Dung shrugs. Intelligence says yes. The American soldiers aren't complaining anymore. No more jamming, no more failures. He looks at Hai. You carried one before, didn't you? Hai nods slowly. Then it's yours again. If you want it. Hai thinks about Duke, dead with a jammed rifle in his hands. He thinks about that ambush on Highway 14, the sick feeling of a weapon failing at the worst possible moment. He thinks about his AK-47, crude but reliable, a rifle that has never betrayed him. Then he thinks about accuracy, about the M16's light recoil, its flat trajectory, the way its rounds punch through cover that would stop an AK bullet. He thinks about fighting American soldiers who carry these weapons and how useful it would be to understand them intimately. I'll take it, he says. March 8th, 1967. Washington, D.C., United States. The hearing room in the Rayburn House office building is paneled in dark wood and filled with men in suits and uniforms. Congressman James J. Howard of New Jersey sits at the center of a long table, flanked by other members of the House Armed Services Committee. Before them, a succession of witnesses has testified for 3 days about the M16 rifle and its failures. Today's witness is Colonel Harold Yunt, U.S. Army, freshly returned from Vietnam. He sits ramrod straight in his dress uniform, ribbons covering his left chest, and when he speaks, his voice carries the weight of 26 years of service. Gentlemen, Yunt says, I commanded a battalion in the Central Highlands for 13 months. In that time, I lost 47 men to enemy action. Of those 47, I can personally confirm that 12 died while trying to clear malfunctioning M16 rifles, 12 men. That's 25% of our casualties directly attributable to weapon failure. Congressman Howard leans forward. Colonel, we've heard testimony that the problems have been resolved, that the M16A1 modification addresses the jamming issues. That is correct, sir. As of December 1966, rifles fitted with the new bolt carrier and chrome-lined chamber have shown dramatically improved reliability. But those modifications came too late for Private Torres, too late for Lance Corporal Rodriguez, too late for 12 of my men and hundreds, perhaps thousands, of others across Vietnam. Who is responsible? Another congressman, voice sharp with anger. Yunt pauses, chooses his words carefully. The responsibility is diffuse, sir. The decision to change gunpowder specifications to save money, the decision to issue rifles without cleaning kits, the decision to market the weapon as self-cleaning when no firearm is self-cleaning, the decision to rush production and deployment without adequate field testing. These decisions were made by many people across multiple agencies, but the consequences were paid by 19-year-old boys in rice paddies who just wanted weapons that would fire when they pulled the trigger. The hearing room is silent. Is the M16 now a reliable weapon? Howard asks. Yes, sir. With the modifications, it's exceptional. Light, accurate, devastating. In my professional opinion, it's the finest infantry rifle in the world. But we killed American soldiers learning that lesson, and we nearly killed the weapon's reputation in the process. Yunt produces a rifle from beneath the table, an M16A1, the improved model. This is what we should have issued from the beginning. Chrome chamber, stronger bolt, cleaning kit, buffer assembly that reduces the cyclic rate. These changes cost maybe $20 per rifle. We could have saved hundreds of lives for a few $1 million. Instead, we saved money and spent blood. He sets the rifle on the table with a sound like a gavel. June 22nd, 1967. A Shao Valley, South Vietnam. High fires the M16A1 in 3-round bursts, and the weapon performs like a precision instrument. The rifle bucks lightly against his shoulder, crack, 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 and downrange, an American soldier diving for cover doesn't make it. The soldier drops, his steel helmet rolling into the grass. High shifts aim. Fires again. Another soldier falls. Around him, the ambush unfolds with practiced efficiency. His unit, now designated the 66th Regiment, has been operating in the A Shao Valley for 2 months, interdicting American supply routes and conducting hit-and-run attacks on fire-based perimeters. They've learned the American patterns, the American weaknesses, the American tendency to call in artillery and airstrikes rather than pursue into hostile terrain. Today's target is a patrol from the 101st Airborne, 12 men moving in 2 columns along a trail that intelligence promised would be used. The intelligence was correct. The Americans walked into the killing zone exactly as predicted, and now half of them are dead or dying, while the other half tries desperately to establish a defensive position. High's M16A1 hasn't jammed once. Not today, not yesterday, not in the 3 months since he began carrying it. The weapon fires every time he pulls the trigger, and its accuracy at distance makes his old AK-47 seem like a relic from another century. He can hit man-sized targets at 300 meters. He can punch rounds through the sandbags the Americans use for cover. He can fight at night using nothing but muzzle flashes for reference because the M16's light recoil allows him to stay on target even during rapid fire. The Americans are returning fire now, their own M16s cracking in response, but they're outgunned and outmaneuvered, caught in a L-shaped ambush with nowhere to run. An RPG streaks through the air and explodes against a tree trunk, showering the Americans with splinters and shrapnel. A machine gun opens up from the tree line, an RPD, firing in long hammering bursts that tear through the patrol's position. High sees movement, an American soldier crawling toward cover, dragging a wounded comrade. He leads the target slightly, compensating for movement and distance, then squeezes the trigger. The burst catches the soldier in the upper back. Both men stop moving. Captain Truong's whistle sounds 2 sharp blasts. Cease fire. The ambush has lasted maybe 45 seconds, and the trail is littered with bodies and abandoned equipment. Standard procedure now calls for immediate withdrawal before American helicopters arrive, but Truong signals for weapons collection. 2 minutes. Grab what you can carry. High sprints onto the trail. The American soldiers are young, impossibly young, their faces frozen in expressions of shock and pain. He tries not to look at their faces as he gathers equipment. M16 rifles, ammunition bandoliers, fragmentation grenades, a radio, still crackling with frantic calls for air support. He takes everything that looks useful, loading himself like a pack animal, then runs back toward the tree line as the first helicopter appears over the ridgeline. They're a kilometer away when the American bombs start falling. The jungle erupts behind them, massive explosions that flatten trees and throw earth skyward. The Americans always overreact, always pour excessive firepower onto empty positions. Hai can feel the concussions through the ground, can feel the heat wash over him even at this distance. But he's alive. His weapon worked. And slung across his back are 2 more M16A1s that will arm other fighters who've learned to appreciate American engineering. That's September 15th, 1967. Dak To, Kon Tum Province. Lieutenant William Carson, U.S. Army, 173rd Airborne Brigade, cleans his M16A1 by the light of a Coleman lantern. The firebase perimeter is quiet tonight. No mortars, no probes, just the usual sounds of a jungle at war. Insects buzzing, radio chatter, the distant thump of artillery fire from another firebase, another war within the war. Carson's rifle is immaculate. He cleans it every night, breaks it down to components, swabs every surface, lubricates every moving part. It's become a ritual, something meditative, a way to process the things he's seen and done during daylight hours. "Sir?" A voice from the darkness. Private Kowalski, one of Carson's riflemen, approaching with his own weapon. "Can you show me how to adjust the front sight? I'm shooting low at 100 meters. Carson gestures to the ammo crate beside him. "Sit, let me see your rifle." Kowalski hands over his M16A1. Carson examines it by lantern light. The weapon is clean, well-maintained, obviously cared for. He makes a minor adjustment to the front sight post, then hands it back. "Try that tomorrow at the range. Should bring your point of impact up a couple inches." "Thanks, sir." Kowalski doesn't leave. Instead, he sits, pulls out his own cleaning kit, begins working on his rifle even though it's already clean. Carson understands. The ritual matters. The motion matters. Soldiers have been cleaning weapons since warfare began, and the act connects them to every warrior who came before. "My dad carried an M1 Garand in Korea," Kowalski says quietly. 9 pounds, 8 rounds, kicked like a mule. He says our rifles are toys compared to what he carried. "Your dad's rifle jammed in Korea?" Carson asks. "No, sir." "Then the comparison isn't fair. The M1 was reliable, but it was also heavy and slow and limited. This," Carson taps his M16A1, "is a different philosophy. Light, fast, high capacity. When it works, it's devastating. And when it doesn't work," Carson pauses. He was in country during the dark days of 1966 when M16s jammed and soldiers died. He personally carried a rifle that failed him during a firefight near Pleiku, forcing him to pick up a dead man's AK-47 to keep fighting. He wrote letters to his congressman. He filed reports that went nowhere. He watched the weapon's reputation crater among troops who should have loved it. "When it doesn't work," Carson says slowly, "people die. But that was the old rifle. The modifications fixed it. Chrome chamber, new bolt, better buffer. I put 5,000 rounds through this rifle in the last 3 months and it hasn't jammed once." "The VC are using them now," Kowalski says. "Captured M16s. My squad got ambushed last week, and I swear half the enemy fire was coming from our own weapons." This is true. Carson has seen the intelligence reports. Captured M16A1s are prized among NVA and VC units, especially among troops who've learned to maintain them properly. The rifle's accuracy and penetration make it superior to the AK-47 in skilled hands, and there's a bitter irony in American soldiers being killed by American weapons. "They're good students," Carson admits. "They learn fast, they adapt. And now that the rifles actually work, they're learning that American engineering can be just as reliable as Soviet engineering, if we do it right." Kowalski finishes cleaning his rifle, reassembles it with practiced motions. "Seems like we had to learn the hard way." "We always learn the hard way," Carson replies. "It's the American tradition. We fuck up, people die, then we fix the problem and pretend we knew what we were doing all along." It's more honesty than a lieutenant should share with a private, but Carson is tired of the war, tired of the heat, tired of sending men on patrols that accomplish nothing beyond maintaining a presence in terrain that doesn't want them. But he's not tired of his rifle. The M16A1 has become an extension of his body, a tool he trusts implicitly, and that trust has kept him alive through 13 months of combat. "Get some sleep," he tells Kowalski. "We're patrolling tomorrow, Hill 875. Should be a walk in the park." Kowalski laughs darkly. Nothing in Vietnam is a walk in the park. They both know this, but soldiers joke because the alternative is madness, and sometimes a dark laugh is the only thing standing between a man and the abyss. Carson finishes cleaning his rifle, loads a fresh magazine, sets it beside his cot within arm's reach, because the firebase perimeter is never truly safe. Then he lies down, closes his eyes, and tries to sleep despite the heat and the insects and the weight of responsibility that never quite lifts. His M16A1 gleams in the lantern light, ready for whatever tomorrow brings. December 8th, 1967. Loc Ninh District, Bin Long Province. Hai crouches behind a termite mound the size of a small car, and for the first time in 18 months of fighting, he feels something approaching confidence, not the reckless confidence of youth that died somewhere around his 100th firefight, but the earned confidence of a soldier who understands his weapon intimately. The M16A1 in his hands is a captured rifle, but it's his rifle now. He knows its quirks, its preferences, the exact amount of pressure required on the trigger for a clean break. He's memorized the way it shoots high at 50 meters, dead on at 100, slightly low at 200. He's learned to clean it with rice wine when proper solvent isn't available, learned to keep it wrapped in plastic during monsoon rains, learned to fire it in short bursts to prevent barrel overheating. The rifle has a name now, scratched into the stock with a knife point: Cong Li. Justice. His target today is the American firebase, a temporary position established 3 days ago near the Cambodian border. The firebase is small, maybe 50 soldiers, a few mortars, concertina wire strung in loose perimeters. Intelligence says the Americans are using it as a forward observation post, calling in airstrikes on supply routes running through the jungle. Command wants it eliminated. Hai's unit, 22 fighters from the 271st Regiment, has been watching the firebase for 2 days, studying patterns, counting soldiers, mapping fields of fire. They've identified weaknesses. The northern perimeter is undermanned. The guard rotation happens at dawn when soldiers are tired and careless. And most importantly, the Americans have grown complacent, believing their artillery and air support make them invulnerable. Today they learn different. The attack begins at 5:47 a.m., when the jungle is still dark and the firebase is transitioning between night watch and morning routine. Hai fires the opening shot, a single round that drops an American soldier walking to the latrine. The man falls without a sound, his coffee cup still spinning in the air. Then chaos. RPGs streak toward the firebase, their warheads detonating against sandbag bunkers and ammunition storage. Machine gun fire rakes the perimeter from 3 directions. Mortars drop rounds inside the wire, walking their fire across tents and fighting positions. The Americans scramble for weapons and cover, but they're disorganized, caught in the vulnerable moment between sleep and full alertness. Hai fires methodically. Aim. Breathe. Squeeze. The M16A1's reports are sharp cracks that blend into the larger symphony of violence. He can see his rounds impacting, puffs of dust where they strike sandbags, sparks where they hit metal, the distinctive impact shock when they find flesh. The rifle's 5.56mm rounds travel so fast they create temporary wound cavities larger than the bullets themselves. When they hit human bodies, they tumble and fragment, creating devastating injuries. An American soldier appears above a bunker line, shouldering his own M16A1, seeking targets. Hai fires first, 3 rounds, center mass. The American drops backward, his rifle clattering on sandbags. Another soldier running toward the command post. Hai leads him, compensates for movement, fires. The soldier stumbles, falls, tries to crawl. Hai fires again. The soldier stops moving. The Americans are returning fire now, their weapons crackling across the perimeter. Rounds snap past Hai's position, thudding into the termite mound with sounds like fists hitting clay. He shifts position, moves 3 meters left, finds new cover behind a fallen log, fires again. An American machine gunner trying to bring an M60 into action takes 2 rounds through the shoulder and collapses onto his weapon. Beside Hai, a fighter named Tuan is also firing a captured M16A1. Tuan is younger, less experienced, but he's learned quickly. His rifle barks in controlled pairs. Crack, crack, pause, crack, crack. Each burst finding targets. Together, they're creating a cone of fire that makes the northern perimeter untenable. "Watch the bunker!" Hai shouts, pointing toward a sandbagged position where an American soldier is trying to set up a grenade launcher. Tuan shifts aim, fires a long burst. The sandbags explode in small geysers as the high-velocity rounds punch through. The American soldier retreats deeper into the bunker, but sandbags that stop AK-47 rounds don't stop M16 rounds reliably. The smaller, faster 5.56mm bullets have remarkable penetration against certain materials. Hai has seen them punch through wooden walls, through car doors, through vegetation that would stop heavier, slower rounds. The AK-47's 7.62mm bullet hits harder but moves slower. The M16's bullet hits lighter but moves so fast it defeats cover through sheer velocity. Hai aims at the bunker where the American soldier hid, fires an entire magazine into the sandbags, stitching rounds in a tight pattern. He can't see through the bags, can't see if his rounds are penetrating, but he understands ballistics now. Understands that sand is granular, that it absorbs and disperses energy. But that enough impacts in the same area will create channels, weak points, paths for bullets to follow. Movement in the bunker. The American soldier staggers out, clutching his side, his face white with shock. He thought himself safe behind sandbags, and now he's learning what Hai learned months ago. The M16 changes the rules of cover and concealment. The fire base is breaking. Smoke pours from destroyed positions. American soldiers are pulling back toward the landing zone, calling desperately for helicopter evacuation. Some are wounded, limping, or being carried. Others are simply running. Discipline abandoned in favor of survival. Captain Truong's whistle sounds 3 long blasts. Cease fire, withdraw. Hai stops shooting, though targets remain. He knows the pattern now. The Americans will call in airstrikes, will saturate this entire grid square with bombs and napalm, will turn the jungle into a moonscape rather than risk ground pursuit. The firebase is finished. The Americans will abandon it rather than defend it, and that's victory enough. He checks his rifle. 3 magazines expended, 90 rounds fired. The barrel is hot enough to raise blisters, but the weapon has functioned flawlessly. No jams, no failures, just clean, reliable violence exactly when needed. Tuan appears beside him, grinning despite the danger, his own M16A1 smoking in his hands. "Like magic," he says. "Point and shoot, and they fall down." Hai nods but doesn't smile. He's thinking about the American soldier he killed while the man was walking to the latrine, unarmed, probably thinking about coffee and breakfast and letters from home. He's thinking about all the soldiers on both sides who carry these rifles, who trust them, who die whether their weapons work or fail. The M16A1 is not magic, it's just engineering. Steel and aluminum and plastic shaped into a tool for killing, but it's excellent engineering, Hai has to admit. The Americans finally got it right. They learned their lesson, paid their tuition in blood, and produced a weapon that works as advertised. Now both sides carry it. Both sides trust it. Both sides die from it. Hai wraps his rifle in a poncho, protecting it from the coming rain, and follows his unit deeper into jungle that accepts them like ghosts returning home. March 19th, 1968. Hue City, Thua Thien Province. The battle for Hue has been raging for 6 weeks, and Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb has learned to identify weapons by sound alone. The sharp crack of M16s, the deeper boom of AK-47s, the staccato hammer of machine guns. But lately there's a new confusion in the symphony of violence, sharp cracks coming from enemy positions, the distinctive report of M16A1s fired by soldiers who aren't American. Webb crouches in the shattered remains of what was once someone's home, probably a family's home, with walls decorated in bullet holes and a ceiling open to gray sky. His squad, 7 men, all that remain from the original 12, takes cover among the rubble. Outside, the street is a killing ground. Bodies lie where they fell, American and NVA both, evidence of fighting so intense that neither side can recover their dead. "Movement, 2 o'clock, says Corporal Hayes, his eye pressed to his rifle's crude iron sights. Roof of the blue building. Webb sees it, a figure, barely visible, positioned behind a chimney. The figure shifts, and sunlight glints off metal. A rifle barrel, protruding just inches past cover. The figure fires. The sound is unmistakable, an M16A1, not an AK-47. The round cracks past Webb's position and impacts the wall behind him, sending brick fragments into his neck. "He's got one of ours," Hayes mutters. "Doesn't matter whose rifle it is," Webb replies. "He's trying to kill us with it." Webb raises his own M16A1, aims carefully, compensates for range and wind and the thousand small variables that separate hits from misses. He fires twice. The figure on the roof jerks, then disappears behind the chimney. Webb can't tell if he hit or if the enemy soldier just took cover, and there's no time to find out because fire is coming from two other positions now, a coordinated response that speaks to training and discipline. The squad returns fire. 7 M16A1s crackling in a ragged chorus, their rounds punching through walls and windows and roof tiles. Webb can see his tracers arcing through the air, every fifth round burning red, and he walks his fire across the building's facade, methodically destroying cover and concealment. An explosion rocks the street, RPG impacting somewhere behind Webb's position. Then another. The NVA are trying to flank, trying to maneuver, using the same small unit tactics the Americans pride themselves on. This isn't the guerrilla warfare of the jungle. This is urban combat, room to room and house to house, where every corner hides death and every doorway is a fatal funnel. "We need to move," Webb shouts over the gunfire. "They're going to pin us here and drop mortars on our heads." The squad pulls back, bounding in pairs, covering each other across open spaces that seem designed to channel soldiers into machine gun fire. Webb goes last, firing suppressive bursts that keep enemy heads down while his men reach the next position. His M16A1 is hot now, the handguard burning his palm through his glove, but the weapon keeps firing. Magazine change, 30 rounds gone in seconds, slam in a fresh magazine, charge the rifle, fire again. They reach a building that offers better cover, thicker walls, fewer windows, a courtyard that provides 360-degree security. Webb takes stock. His men are exhausted, filthy, running on adrenaline and fear. Hayes has a shrapnel wound in his thigh, bleeding, but not arterial. Private Morrison is coughing blood, probably from breathing too much brick dust, possibly from lung damage. "How much ammo?" Webb asks. The answers come back. 2 magazines, 3 magazines. 4 if you count partials. Not enough for sustained combat, not enough for another hour of the meat grinder that Hugh has become. Webb keys his radio. "Blackjack 6, this is Blackjack 2-1. We're pinned down at Grid Square." He rattles off coordinates. "Request ammunition resupply and case vac for 2 wounded. The radio crackles. Static. Artillery fire in the background. Then 2-1, 6 actual. Negative on immediate resupply. Choppers are grounded due to weather. You're going to have to hold position until conditions improve. ETA 4 hours. 4 hours. An eternity in urban combat. Roger 6. We'll hold." Webb sets down the radio handset and looks at his men. They heard the transmission. They know what it means. 4 hours of rationing ammunition, of choosing targets carefully, of hoping the NVA don't realize how vulnerable they are. "Sir?" Morrison, the youngest, barely 19. "What if they rush us?" "Then we make every round count," Webb says. "And if we run out of ammunition, we use bayonets. And if we lose our bayonets, we use rocks and fists and teeth. But we hold this position. Clear?" "Clear, Sergeant." The afternoon stretches into evening. The NVA probed the position twice, both times pulling back after taking casualties. Webb's squad fires carefully, precisely, making their dwindling ammunition last. The M16A1s perform flawlessly. No jams, no failures, just reliable violence delivered on demand. At one point, Webb sees an NVA soldier across the street taking cover behind a burned-out car. The soldier is carrying an M16A1, and for a surreal moment they make eye contact. 2 men with identical weapons fighting for opposite sides, both depending on American engineering to keep them alive. The moment breaks. The NVA soldier fires. Webb fires. Both miss. Both retreat to cover. Neither dies, though death was less than a second away for both. May 4th, 1968. Khe Sanh Combat Base. Nguyen Van Hai sits in a bunker deep enough to withstand direct hits from 500-pound bombs, and he cleans his M16A1 with the reverence some men reserve for religious artifacts. The rifle has saved his life more times than he can count. It's killed American soldiers and ARVN troops and probably a few Viet Cong who got caught in crossfires. The weapon doesn't care who pulls the trigger. It just performs, mechanical and efficient, converting human will into kinetic energy. Around him, other fighters from the 304th Division rest between bombardments. The Americans are evacuating Khe Sanh after months of siege, and NVA forces are moving into positions the Americans fortified. It feels like victory, though Hai knows better than to celebrate. The Americans will bomb these positions tomorrow, will saturate them with B-52 strikes that turn Earth into atmosphere, and the cycle will continue. A fighter named Locke sits beside Hai, also cleaning an M16A1. Locke is new to the division, transferred from a unit operating near Saigon, and he's still learning the weapon. "How do you know when it's clean enough?" Locke asks, peering down the rifle's barrel. "When you can see rifling clearly," Hai says. "When there's no carbon buildup in the chamber, when the bolt carrier moves smoothly, the Americans learn that their rifle needs maintenance. We learned the same lesson, but we learned it from them." "My old commander said the AK-47 is better," Locke says. "More reliable." Hai pauses his cleaning, sets down his bore brush. "The AK-47 is more reliable. You can drag it through mud, you can leave it in rice paddies, you can treat it like garbage and it still fires, but the M16," he hefts his rifle, "is more effective, better accuracy, flatter trajectory, more penetration. In skilled hands, it's superior." "But we're not Americans," Locke says. "We don't have their supply lines. We can't get parts when things break." This is true. Hai has learned to cannibalize broken M16A1s for spare parts, to file down components that don't quite fit, to improvise solutions that would horrify American armorers. The rifle requires more maintenance than an AK-47, requires more care, requires a level of dedication that many fighters can't sustain in jungle conditions. "Then carry an AK," Hai says simply. "There's no shame in it. Both weapons kill. But I've learned this rifle. I trust it. And trust matters more than specifications." Outside, artillery begins falling. American artillery, fired from positions being evacuated, clearing the area one last time before withdrawal. The explosions are distant, rhythmic, almost peaceful in their predictability. Hai continues cleaning his rifle, working by the light of a candle that flickers with each concussion. He thinks about the war, about how it's changed since 1966 when he first carried a M16 that jammed and failed. He thinks about the Americans who died learning their rifle needed chrome chambers and cleaning kits. He thinks about the Vietnamese soldiers on both sides who carry these weapons now, who trust them, who understand them. The M16A1 represents something beyond its mechanical function. It represents American industrial might, American engineering prowess, American willingness to learn from mistakes. But it also represents shared human experience, soldiers on both sides facing the same problems, learning the same lessons, trusting the same solutions. Hai finishes cleaning his rifle, loads a fresh magazine, sets it beside his sleeping mat within arm's reach, ready for whatever tomorrow brings. The weapon gleams in candlelight, American-made but Vietnamese carried, a tool of war that transcends the politics that created it. Epilogue. The M16 platform would go on to serve the U.S. military for over 50 years, evolving through dozens of variants, but retaining the basic design that finally worked in 1967. The early failures became case studies in military procurement, cautionary tales about cost-cutting and inadequate testing. Congressional hearings led to reforms, cleaning kits became standard issue, chrome-lined chambers became mandatory. For the North Vietnamese Army and Viet Cong, captured M16A1s remained prized weapons throughout the war. NVA soldiers who carried them often became designated marksmen, using the rifle's superior accuracy to maximum advantage. Some units reported that up to 20% of their small arms were captured American weapons by 1970. The soldiers who carried M16s, American ARVN, NVA, and VC, shared an understanding that transcended ideology. They understood that weapons are only as good as the systems that support them. That maintenance matters. That reliability earned through experience matters more than specifications on paper. Nguyen Van Hai survived the war, so did Sergeant Marcus Webb. They never met, never knew each other's names, but they shared the experience of trusting their lives to the same weapon, a weapon that failed an entire generation of soldiers before finally becoming what it was meant to be. The M16A1 was not perfect, but it was good enough. And in war, good enough often means the difference between living and dying, between victory and defeat, between a weapon that defines a generation and one that's forgotten. The Viet Cong captured American M16 rifles and realized they were more deadly than Soviet AKs. But they learned something else too, that even the best weapon is worthless without the knowledge to maintain it, the training to use it, and the hard lessons written in blood.